Well, 4 days after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced his pending resignation, attention has turned to the bid to replace him as Liberal leader. A source has told CBC News former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney is expected to formally announce his bid late next week. CBC's Ashley Burke has the latest on the leadership race.
Another high-profile minister now out of the running to replace Justin Trudeau.
I was really torn about this decision because, to be frank, I think that our chances were really, really high.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister says she wants to be the first woman to lead the Liberal Party, but can't.
Canadians are anxious when they hear President-elect Trump saying and restating again his threats. So I decided to put my country first, and I decided to do my job.
That's why another minister who's now facing calls to reconsider already bowed out too.
I will be solely focused on the real economic threat.
As for those entering the race, a source says former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney is expected to launch his campaign next week. And BC's former Premier Christy Clark told CBC's The House she's considering it too, but wishes there was more time.
We're looking at the rules now before I make a final decision, but I think, we can make this work in the timeline that we've got.
Last night, the Liberal Party released a video setting the date and rules for the race to become the next leader. The entrance fee for candidates is $350,000, and registered Liberals voting are now limited to Canadian citizens and permanent residents, a change made to address concerns about foreign interference.
I am very confident in the processes and assurances that have been given to me, that process will be one that ensures that only people who should be voting and people who we would want to see participating in a Canadian democratic process will be participating in that process.
Two relatively unknown candidates have already said they're running. Others who want the job have to declare it within the next 2 weeks. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
All right, for a deeper look into the Liberal leadership race, we're now joined by Alex Marland. Alex is a political science professor at Acadia University, joining me from Halifax. Alex, great to see you.
Good evening.
So get your sense here, as we've just been reporting, a source has told CBC News Mark Carney expected to declare his bid for leadership late next week. We know that Melanie Joly, we heard that today, that she will not be in the running, seemed to be quite motivated to initially run, but she's pulled back on that. Give me your sense here on sort of, I guess, two big developments that have come out today.
Well, first, it's a disappointment if Melanie Joly isn't running, as she says she isn't. In your report, you were mentioning about how the Liberal Party has never been led by a woman. And that's really a bizarre thing, given that the Liberal Party is such a strong party in this country. And some might argue that it's time. With Mark Carney, the news reports are saying that he's planning on coming out with a long roster of MPs endorsing him. And that really tells you that he's starting to potentially gain some control over this leadership race, and he's going to come out with a bit of a bang.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as we sort of continue to see what's going to come from him. We're also waiting to see more from Chrystia Freeland as well. It's Friday. Things can certainly pivot over the weekend, and then as we head into the Monday. But let's talk about the rules as well. That's really played a really key role in all of this. Can you break it down for us?
Yeah, well, to even break it down, I think what we need to do is understand how do we get to where we are today.
Right.
So historically with Canadian political parties, you buy a membership, $5, $10, you get involved locally, you have a little membership card, and that's the way it's been. But when Justin Trudeau was leader or became leader of the Liberal Party, he didn't like the idea of a party. He wanted to change the Liberal Party, to become more of a movement, more of a social movement, and more in line with the times. And so he did away with that, and anybody could sign up. Well, that was back in 2013, 2015. And so now where we are today is, with the prospect of foreign interference, the idea that anybody could sign up and potentially vote in the Liberal leadership race and have an effect on the outcome of who is the future Prime Minister is really disturbing. So the Liberal Party rightly clamped down on this. Mm-hmm. And now what they're saying is the rules are going to tighten. They're going to be much more like the Conservatives and what the NDP are doing, which is saying you have to be a Canadian citizen, you have to be a permanent resident, you have to be at least 14 years of age. So now it is going to be much tighter. But even then, it's still going to be hard for them to be able to assemble all this information in such a short period of time.
March 9th, that's sort of the key date there that we're focusing on in terms of when that new leader will be chosen. And then, of course, it's just a matter of a couple of weeks before they get back to the House. Did it take too long to incorporate these changes? I mean, did it take this in order for those changes to happen?
Yeah, this is a real mystery to me. I think the Liberal Party, frankly, they blew it to get to this point where they're suddenly trying to figure it out. I've been trying to figure out why this is. Why weren't they on top of this right away as soon as this was coming out about the whole idea about foreign interference? The best guess that I could come up with is the Prime Minister and his entourage simply didn't want this to be an issue and a distraction for them. So it's better for them now. They don't have to worry about it. It's not Prime Minister Trudeau's concern. But it does mean that the party has had to scramble a little bit. So hopefully they're going to be able to put everything in place so that everybody who's signing up to become a Liberal registered member by the 27th who's going to be able to vote in this leadership race is certainly going to be somebody that they would be able to identify as, again, Canadian citizen, permanent resident, age 14 or up.
And that sort of circles around sort of the politics around securitarization. So can you talk to us a bit about that?
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you just said.
Well, the politics around securitarization, and what you expect sort of that leadership, how that leadership race is supposed to unfold. Securing, of course, with these rules here, what the process is going to be like, ensuring, of course, if anyone coming from outside of the party now wants to be involved in all of this.
Yeah, so the thing to keep in mind is that when you are literally having thousands and thousands of names appearing of people registering, because every time someone goes on a website, it's going to end up in a database.
Right.
You've got to then verify all that information. And in other leadership races, what's happened is, this is done manually. Someone's got to go through and check all of this and all these names. And how are you supposed to verify it? So one of the things that I think is that the Liberal Party is going to have a whole number of people on top of all of this to make sure that the people who are able to vote are actually people who are real people who are eligible.
Indeed. So now, what are you going to be watching for between, I guess, now and March 9th? Again, we've got sort of a couple of names in the running here, but what are you watching for?
Well, I think what a lot of us should be watching for is really thinking about the difficult dance that any potential leader has to do. And that's because, from my perspective, there's at least 3 constituencies they have to look out for. So number one, they have to pivot and they have to focus very much on the Liberals who are registered to be able to vote. After that, once they become Liberal leader and Prime Minister, their next constituency is going to be NDP caucus members, because they need to be able to get a throne speech through the House in order to last longer as a government. And then the third constituency is going to be Canadians as a whole in a general election. All 3 of those constituencies have different priorities. So it's going to be a really interesting thing for all of these different leadership candidates to have to consider.
What a way to begin the year. Alex, thank you so much for this. Alex Marland is a political science professor at Acadia University. Thank you again for this, Alex.
My pleasure.